You might have come to this channel today, you might be feeling overwhelmed, you might be feeling stressed out, you might even be really confused. What's going wrong with my life? What the heck is going on? Why do relationships keep going south? What's the problem with me, or what's the problem with the world? We love to start off by saying, nothing's wrong with you, you're amazing from birth to death. That's the approach we take. When you think about trauma and traumatic injury, there are so many ways we can think about it. But when we're 6 and 8 and 10 and 15 and 20 and 21, we think about it with limited data. Even now, if I had something happen, I only have limited data. So the narrative that I make up, mostly unconsciously, usually is incomplete, and some of the data in the narrative is inaccurate. That's not a flaw in you or a flaw in me. Think of it like our mind has to make sense of how to read our world. Humans tell stories day in, day out. We make them up in our mind, we tell them to one another, we hear them from someone else, we even use parts of someone else's story sometimes in our narrative. Today's video is going to look at narrative exposure therapy, as well as some of the therapies that are useful for trauma and recovery. This is where we provide free videos to help people build mental fitness. Stay tuned at the end. We'll talk a little bit more about how you specifically can use narrative in your own life. You might use it with a therapist, or you might use it as you start to rewrite your story about your life. That can actually help you feel better, feel more balanced, feel more emotionally regulated, and help us have better relationships. Think about how many stories we have in our mind. The gazillion terabytes, every smell, every sound, every taste is applied to a situation or an event. All kinds of input, sensory data applied and remember. Even our body remembers certain events, especially traumatic injury. The body will record this. So imagine how complex that is. So the mind's grabbing little bits of data to apply to a certain part of your life, what it means to be a student. Now you have a student folder. And that changes over time. All these different folders, all set up with thoughts that kind of help us make sense of what it means to be a human, a person, go into a store, go to the bank, do laundry. All of these things have little folders, and we have stories about them. They might be positive or negative. That's something for us to explore. However, all of these things, all of these little icons maybe on our desktop of our mind are helping us do life. They just help us make sense of life, help us go about our day. What's on our conscious mind is really what we need to apply right now or this week or this month. The unconscious has a gazillion terabytes of data in folders as well. So it's only when some of these information or some of these folders become problematic. The story about me, not good enough. The story about your relationship, it sucks. Your job is awful. This plane flying by is going to bother me. When we have an intense emotion related to this plane flying overhead right now, it actually resonates in the body. Tension, heart rate, blood pressure. So narrative really does make a difference. The story we tell ourselves and tell others about any event. When one is particularly bothering you or bringing up a lot of emotion, a lot of tension in the body, there's a good chance that's a narrative you could rewrite. Think about it that way. Most of your stories helping you do life, the odd one needs to be reconstructed, deconstructed, and rewritten. When we make up a story, a lot of people think it's the actual traumatic event, or it's the injury, a car crash, whether it was a rape or an abduction of some sort. Lots of awful things happen on planet Earth. A lot of people think that's what's causing all the problem. Definitely a big part of it is related to the stressor itself, and then a big part of our outcome depends on how we think about it. So long before we knew how to think about it, we were already thinking about it in our mind. Our mind was making up a story about what that awful event meant, how it happened, who was responsible, and that can actually build up a lot of tension in our body as well. It might lie dormant for years, we might not revisit it for years, but by the time we do, the narrative might be so well entrenched, such a comprehensive story, that we don't even realize it's there or how it could possibly affect our emotions. comes specifically around trauma, narrative exposure is starting to talk with you as you're comfortable, talking a little more openly about what happened, little by little, at your pace, as you're comfortable. You do want to be relaxed with the therapist. However, you're going to be pushed. That's why it's called exposure. You're going to be pushed to expose the awful things that have happened in your life. Some therapists will use this approach to help you actually tell the story. And one of the great benefits is that you can actually be accepted and validated given what happened. A lot of the times, part of the negative narrative is the stinking thinking, or what we call that negative voice chirping back here, that you're now somehow not good enough, we're wounded, you're not going to ever have a mate, you can't have intimacy or a close relationship because of whatever happened. That's not true at all. Very important for us to catch that story, figure out how it's actually interwoven into our lives, and then to rewrite, deconstruct, and reconstruct a new narrative that's more balanced, more encouraging and empowering about yourself and about your world. And it really helps us build better connection with the loved ones in your life by healing those injuries from the past. Remember, you can use this therapy to improve yourself. Asking yourself a few questions, sometimes just asking a few questions and challenging your dominant narrative. So, as an end to this video, I want you to think about these two questions. Who in your life knew and knows right now, even if they're still alive, that you're capable, you're strong, you're amazing, you're capable of overcoming these challenges? Think about who in your life saw that spark in you that said you can do things, you can overcome things. That's one type of a narrative question to shift your view from, oh bother, I'm not good enough, I'll never overcome this. I call it Eeyorville. Stinking thinking's a one-way trip to Eeyorville. Oh bother, I can't do anything. So to shift that narrative, who knew you have capacity? Who knows right now in your life? Who is there in your life? Another one, can you think of a time when it didn't exist? Can you think of a time when this didn't exist in your life? Think of a time when this first got into your life, this problem. It's a bit of a hint. It wasn't always there. Oftentimes the negative narrative can become, oh, it's always been this way. I've always been like this, which is rarely ever the truth, unless some injury happened in vitro, in which case it may be for a very select minority. So there's a couple questions. I have a whole sheet of 18 questions. If you'd like narrative questions, you can email us, reach out to us, and we'll send those to you. So starting to ask questions that dig deeper into the background of the mind, you can uncover the narrative, uncover the story as it is now, even write that out a little bit about how you do relationships, romance, how you are at work. Write out the narrative and see where things are off balance. You can also start to rewrite that narrative. How will I know when I've overcome this? What will be different in my life? These are questions to help us start to think differently and start to shift the narrative. And of course, the emotional state changes gradually over time, and the behaviors will last to change. So watch out for the negative voice that says, this should work right away. Humans don't change like that. We change slowly and gradually over time. Acceptance. Getting to a place of acceptance that you're absolutely amazing the way you are. You're absolutely amazing, even feeling awful things like feeling overwhelmed, feeling nervous, feeling confused. These are all signals that our body's giving us. Your body is giving you that change is on the horizon. Change needs to happen. So keep up the good work. Change yourself, change your life, change your mind, change your life. Shifting the narrative, shifting the story in the background of your mind can really help. To assist your learning with narrative exposure therapy, I recommend people go to the dulwichcenter.au. This was set up initially by Michael White as well as by David Epstein. They're the two founders of narrative therapy and narrative theory approach. Check out the link in our description below where you can learn more about narrative exposure therapy. So thanks again for watching our YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, please hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell will give you a notification when we come out with a new video. We welcome your comments and even a suggestion for future videos. Thanks again for joining and for seeking ideas to improve your mental fitness. Keep up the good work. Remember, take care out there.